Okay, hey, welcome to my office. Guys, my name is Miles Boyer. I know a lot of you guys are going to find this video because it's like the hot button topic. And I think I'm one of the first people that can kind of honestly say that I've covered this thing. Let's talk about these new Fujifilm cameras, okay? Like, join me for just a hot minute in my office. It's a mess in here. This is a working office for a working photographer. First things first, disclaimers. You guys, yes, if you Google my name, I'm Miles Boyer. I am a Fujifilm X photographer, part of their global team. And the disclaimer is that not only does Fujifilm not even know that I'm creating this video, but they didn't ask me to, and I'm not being compensated for this video by them in any stretch. And so all of these opinions are completely mine, and they're completely mine to have. That being said, I had the opportunity this last weekend to go to a wedding in Northern California and shoot both of the brand new Fujifilm X2 and Xh2 and Xh2s cameras side by side alongside the GFX100S. So I'm gonna slow that down so you guys can actually kind of wrap your mind around what that is. So the brand new Xh2 and the Xh2s are the new APS-C cameras from Fujifilm. I get to shoot both of those side by side. So we've got a chance here. We're gonna jump over and actually do some image comparison. And then I shot as well the GFX100S. And guys, if you've seen these things in real world, you know that they all kind of look very similar. This is the Xh2, the 40 megapixel APS-C sensor that is absolutely just revolutionary. The fact that they got 40 megapixels on that sensor is it's incredible. The image quality, spoiler alert, it actually kind of blew my mind. Here's the Xh2s. Now this thing has stacked sensors. It's only 26.1 megapixels. It's much more geared towards sort of the video and obviously video photo hybrid shooter. But I will say this, I don't think I've ever used, I'm gonna say more bluntly, I have never used an autofocus system that is this accurate or this snappy. It blew my, frequently this thing was in focus before I knew I was trying to get something in focus. Pretty shocking. And then if you followed my work at all for very long, you know that this guy, the GFX100S, is my workhorse. I transitioned everything, or nearly everything, about 90% of my workflow to a large format digital sensor, working on the GFX100 and GFX100S a few years ago. And I never thought that I would go back to an APS-C sensor. The truth is that I have completely fallen in love with working slow and working intentionally, and these 102 megapixel large format sensors are, I mean, completely revolutionary. There's still nothing on the market that even comes close to the quality. And that said, here I am with a brand new camera in my bag and a lot to talk through. Okay, so we've clicked over into my my Lightroom catalog from this wedding right now, and you can see up here that I've got 7,800 photos from this wedding. Feels excessive, I'm not gonna lie, but listen, I mean, let's just go for it, okay? Let's just chat through exactly how special this thing was, because the reality is that I never shoot that many photos. But one of the reasons I think I have that many is a little bit of, like, maybe let's call it user error. I wasn't prepared for how sharp and how quick these two new cameras were going to be. And so I'm used to shooting a medium format sensor that is very methodical and very intentional. And guys, I just had a blast, honestly. So here's what I've done. I've gone ahead in on each camera here, and you can see this, and created just a few images for us to click through and look at together, okay? First thing I want to point out, though, is we're going to start actually with the Xh2s because it has all the hype about it right now, and as it should, really. The S and the H are just remarkable cameras, and sorry, the H2, and so I'm going to kind of click through and show you what I noticed, okay? So starting with the Xh2s, the first thing that just sort of blew me away, I'm gonna go full screen here so you can sort of see. I think I've got 27 images flagged from the bride's walk down the aisle. Now we're gonna zoom in pretty tight here so you can sort of see what I'm talking about. That is a tack sharp image. And I'm gonna scroll through them very quickly, okay? So we're gonna do this almost like a GIF, and you're gonna notice as we go through that every one of, we're skipping ahead, we can't see her first. Every single one of those 27 images is tack sharp. It sort of blew me away, if I'm honest. I'm very used to, even when I was shooting other systems, very used to working with cameras that might miss or might catch 60%, 70%. But to have a camera that can track this accurately is pretty incredible. Now, that being said, what you're gonna see is that I actually was shooting two different cameras during this time of her walking down the aisle, actually simultaneously. And so I had the opportunity to shoot the Xh2 in the same series of shots. Now, if you've read the specs much, you know that theoretically, the Xh2 is not quite as accurate with autofocus as the Xh2s. I believe, and you're gonna correct me if I'm wrong here, YouTube, I know you guys will, I believe a lot of that has to do with the stacked sensor design. But that being said, having a 40 megapixel file that I can zoom in to 100, or let's call, this is probably around 200%, and still have that kind of clarity in the file is just absolutely, it's untouched, especially for an APS-C camera. This is next level. But what you're gonna notice as we scroll through is, again, every single one of these frames, it looks like I actually grabbed 43 from this camera. Every single one of these frames is tack sharp. I'm gonna scroll through like how I did last time so you can kind of see the whole progression, and then we're gonna zoom in nice and tight here so you can sort of see what I mean. Every shot, now these aren't all fully rendering, but if you are much of a photographer, you know how to see through those pixels, right? Every single one of these frames, you guys, is like tack sharp. Unbelievable stuff. I mean, even if that was the only thing that I had to say about these cameras, I think that would be probably enough. That being said, that isn't anywhere near all that I have to say about these cameras. There is an incredible amount to unpack here. Having a 40 megapixel, given we're back with the Xh2 right now, okay? Having a 40 megapixel file that can shoot in direct sun like this and render colors that are this beautiful is, it's untouched. Nobody has ever created a camera file or a sensor that can do this. I don't care if it's full frame or cropped. The reality is the fall off there is absolutely beautiful, and the resolution, the way that this camera is resolving color is next level. Now, these frames were taken with the XF 33mm f1.4. It's one of the newer lenses from the Fujifilm lineup. And guys, you can see, I mean, these are completely unedited files. This is a straight out of camera file. There is absolute magic just hiding in here. Let's open up the info here so we can kind of look at it. So this was taken at a 4,000th of a second, f1.8 at ISO 125. Guys, it was bright. And we're in Northern California. This is at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. When I say it's bright, we're talking nuclear, right? Like absolutely nuclear. And here we are. I mean, it is tack sharp. You can see inside those shadows, that is me, by the way. If we want to zoom in past, this is at 300%. You guys, like moment of silence for the fact that look at how far I am, and there I am, right? That is wild. If you guys can't see that right there, here we are. This is at 800%. Clearly the image falls apart at 800%, but there I am on the road. Y'all, remarkable stuff. All right, let's go into covered shade really quick with this camera. This is, I know, where the majority of wedding photographers really love to live, is in this sort of protected shade. Again, we don't need to be at 800%. Again, at 100%, just absolutely beautiful skin tones. It looks like I actually missed focus, but that was user error in this file that I grabbed. It looks like I'm focused on the groom's face here in the background. But you guys, absolutely just like beautifully resolved colors. again, here's the thing I wanted to point out. The reason I was excited to use this particular wedding was because of the midnight blue tuxedos. Wedding photographers will attest to this all the time. Getting those midnight blue tuxedos to look midnight blue is it's a work of art. And the moment you start editing them, let's grab one here and let's play with a little bit. The moment you start editing them, quickly those colors turn to black or gray, especially if you just use sort of like a preset of some kind. So here's what we're gonna do. Just for the sake of doing it, we're gonna go over and grab like the LXCR preset from Tribe Archipelago, or sorry, from just Archipelago now. I know that's a popular one, and it'll give everyone sort of a vision here for what like maybe a more standard edit would look like on a photo. All right, so stripping the grain out, allowing some of the dynamic range to still breathe here. I realize maybe not the best shot with her face down. Regardless, before YouTube trolls tear me apart, guys, I'm doing this quickly and I'm doing this live so that you guys can kind of see it. But the point here is that that tuxedo is still midnight blue and that lapel is still black. This is color magic right here. To have skin tones that are that clear and that beautiful, whether you like that edit or not is not the point of this video. To be able to retain color like that is a really special thing. And to have 40 megapixels on that APS-C sensor is incredible. Last thing about the Xh2 that I want to talk through is just how incredibly it resolved in the dynamic range as I started shooting off-camera flash. So again, these are straight out of camera images. To be able to have, this is sort of dusky, you can actually see some stars kind of starting to pop up in here, but to be able to have clarity in the image and in the file and still have that kind of dynamic range that shows that it was dusk in the background is really remarkable. I've got no flares coming off, I've got no weird haze coming. I mean, this is just a crisp, clean image, and guys, I mean, unedited, it's unbelievable. But I loved this frame for this. Again, maybe not the most technically beautiful shot, but the point here is that I want to take you guys in to 100%. So this is an OCF image taken with 3 off-camera lights. It has finally rendered there, so we're gonna jump into 300%. So at 300%, let's find that beard hair and let's let it render. You guys, 300% on an APS-C camera. I mean, the croppability here, you can literally see where his beard line was shaved. This is an absolutely just a remarkable feat of engineering, and to still have that level of color clarity in the file, it's something that I've never seen before, and it's really special. All right, so we're gonna jump over to the Xh2s, guys. Goodness, it's still early, and sort of compare the two a little bit, because I realize that's the question everybody is talking through right now, is like, well, how do they compare? I'm just gonna say it as bluntly as I can. I was more, as a primarily still photographer, I was more interested in what was gonna come out of the Xh2 than the Xh2s. I wanted those 40 megapixels. That being said, this camera really holds up pretty remarkably well. And again, we're at 300% there. So let's go to 100 and sort of see, once this renders out, what we're looking at. I mean, individual hair texture and clarity and sharpness here it's pretty unbelievable. Again, this is taken inside at ISO 1000. So those of you guys that are pixel peepers, I'm really not, to be honest with you. I actually love a little bit of grain in my images, but to be able to zoom in to 100% at ISO 1000 on an APS-C camera like that, and have that kind of clarity, and then to be able to pull back and see into the shadows like this, it's pretty special. That's a pretty unique field of view to be able to have that. Now, I shot most of these images with the 16mm, XF 16mm f1.4R, the new weather resistance version. Guys, 16mm is such a remarkable frame. Now, all cards on the table here. You know what I didn't do, and I probably should have, in a perfect, like a more systematic test back and forth, I would have swapped the lenses back and forth. The reality is, this was a live wedding I was getting paid to be at, and so I was trying to collect this data for myself and for you guys while not taking away from shooting for my couple. And so I didn't, you know, do like lab tested back and forth images. But I kept this 16mm on the Xh2s pretty much all day because I just love that focal length.
And what came out of it was really pretty remarkable. Again, you can see direct light coming through. I've got even a little bit of lens flare popping up here, but it is not by any stretch of imagination ruining the image quality. At 300%, we can pull in and you can see individual petals. I mean, absolutely incredible stuff. So when you tack the fact that even at 26 megapixels, this thing has a stacked sensor design that allows it to move remarkably fast. Obviously for video, it's just untouched. But it still has more than enough megapixels to be able to see a really high quality image. Now, I had a little bit of fun with this camera, doing some shutter drag work. Again, all OCF here, but I wanted to show you guys just how clean and clear these images came out. Just a really remarkable field of view from this camera. Probably the thing I'd like to point out first, again, is the skin tones. It's just the one thing that Fujifilm has that it seems like every other sensor just fights, or every other system can't quite get. I love the fact that, especially in 2022, when all of us are much more aware of our differences, that Fujifilm's system is beautiful about capturing true skin tones. You can see the ethnic differences between people that are in front of my camera. And to me, that's a really special thing. But let's pull in here. This is at 100%, again, on the Xh2s. And I'm sure she would hate me for this, but I'm gonna go all the way to 300%. Because I want you guys to be able to see, again, OCF image here with a little bit of shutter drag, right? Like you can see that I'm actually kind of pulling here. I'm at a 1/25th of a second, so I'm actually pulling light just a little bit, but look how crisp these files are. I mean, unbelievable. If I had to compare the two, like apples to apples, I would genuinely say I probably enjoyed shooting the Xh2 a little bit more. I think that was primarily because of the confidence that it gave me. Knowing that I had a few more pixels to work with. But that said, I found myself throughout the day genuinely forgetting which camera I was holding. They're that similar. And so if you're kind of on the fence or you're a hybrid shooter at all, I think that Xh2s is more than adequate for anything that anybody's really turning out these days. And let's be honest, whether you're shooting that 8K or you're shooting the open gate 6K, video on either one of these systems is kind of untouched in quality. Now that being said, we're gonna click over really quickly to the GFX100. Now, admittedly, I'm just realizing this, you guys. I'm actually just realizing that I did shoot the GFX100 a little bit more than I shot the 100S on the wedding day, and so I actually flagged images from the GFX100. I shoot both cameras a lot. If you've been around the Fujifilm system for long, you know that there's very few differences, very, very few differences between the two bodies, and none of those differences are going to come across in either quality of image or sensor quality, okay? So let's just consider this an apples to apples comparison. Now that being said, this is my go-to camera, and it's the camera that I shoot for almost everything. And given having 102 megapixels on a large format sensor will allow us to do some things that no APS-C or frankly full frame camera can allow us to do. So as I flip through these really quick, I think it's clear to see that there's definitely a difference. The biggest difference probably in the dynamic range in general, but also as we pull into, again, ceremony images, just how far we can go, right? So at 300% on this camera, we are talking a tight image. Like 300% is significantly tighter on a 102 megapixel camera than anything that we've looked at today. But again, even at ISO 2500 here, this may look as though that file is starting to fall apart just a little bit, but can we remember that this is ISO 2500 at 300%? So let's pull it to 100%. This is with absolutely no noise reduction, no work done on this file at all. This is the pinnacle of imaging right here. I mean, it does not get better. It truly doesn't get better than that. Now, I shoot at high ISOs on these large format sensors all the time. By no means am I afraid to go over 5,000 or even 6,000 ISO. I've been known to take it to 10. That's maybe a little bit of a reach, but I will do it. You know what I love so much about this sensor, though, is in these moments. It's the moments where I have to slow down a little bit. I'm just forced to kind of slow down and back up and shoot what is. And realistically, I don't think there's ever been a camera that has been made that has caught color quality, and just moment the way that the GFX sensors has. So again, if you're kind of on the fence about whether or not to go for an APS-C sensor or the large format sensor, I think my general response to you would be first to look at what you're shooting. If you need the speed, the GFX sensor may not be the camera for you. And the truth of the matter is that it definitely forces you to slow down and see things a little bit more artistically. I do shoot a lot of motion blur with the GFX sensor, and I also just shoot a lot of very intentional moments where I'm in control of the light and I can sort of see exactly what is about to happen. Though I rarely pose my couples, I can slow them down enough with the GFX sensors to really get what I want. That being said, if you want something that is faster but still retains the quality in the image and has a shockingly similar level of quality, I would suggest that you jump over into the Xh2. This camera is it's something that will be sitting in my bag for the foreseeable future. Probably my favorite camera purchase that I have made since the original GFX100. That's not a knock on the 100S. I just remember when I got the GFX100 feeling as though the entire world had changed in imaging. And I was really grateful to be on the front edge of that. So again, here we are with the Xh2. I feel the exact same thing. Now that being said, if you really need the speed, if you want the speed and you want the ability to move quickly, and or you're a hybrid shooter or primary video shooter, this Xh2s is built for you.
Okay, so there we have it. As I wrap up this video and talk just a few more moments, I'm going to be putting some final edited images up for you to see exactly what I came out with, and I'll make sure that they're labeled with which camera. That being said, I feel like at the end of every YouTube video, you're expecting a general reaction and kind of like a conclusion. And so this is that moment where I'm going to tell you exactly my thoughts on all three cameras and whether or not now would be a good time to buy. So here's my perspective. Again, as a Fujifilm endorsed photographer, I clearly am a little bit biased here, but that said, I think it's important to point out that I don't think that there has ever been a camera manufacturer, certainly not a system of cameras, that has listened to photographers quite as intentionally as Fujifilm has. Over the course of the last 10 years of the X system, Fujifilm has evolved their cameras based mostly not on what the rest of the industry is doing, but what on the photographers that are using their cameras are asking for. And so color science has always been a critical element. Now I realize that so many people that are going to watch this video are going to sit back in their chairs and say, but why aren't they full frame? And here's the easy answer, okay? Are you guys ready for this? They're not full frame because they don't need to be. Now, a lot of you guys, that you're gonna scratch your head at that, and I'm going to just break that down for you quickly and briefly, okay? Now, I'm not a high-tech shooter. That's never been me. In fact, actually, if you know my photography at all, you know that I'm a big fan of imperfections in my work, and I'm okay with that. But that being said, let's just jump into what is, okay? What is right now? There is a 40 megapixel APS-C camera that is shooting raw files, there's more data in those raw files than there is in nearly any full frame camera system out there. The number of stops of dynamic range, the number of maneuverable elements that you can change based on color and exposure, recovery, all of those things in a Fujifilm system, completely unmatched. And the X system has done it so phenomenally. They have poured their R&D for so long into making sure that they maximize that size of sensor that now we're really starting to see where we can go with this. Better IBIS, smaller systems, incredibly compact lenses, better battery life. The APS-C system that Fujifilm has committed to in the X series is absolutely intentional. You guys, they're not going full frame because they don't want to go full frame. And that's an important thing to point out. Now, that being said, of course, there's always going to be people that will say, but I need more and I want more. Often I'll question those people by saying why, and yet at the same time, I was one of those people. And what I found was that the small jump from crop sensor into a full frame sensor wasn't worthwhile when I considered all that I would lose by abandoning the Fujifilm color science. but the large, enormously large jump, right? The 1.7x larger jump from full frame into the GFX sensor. Now that was something I could get behind, and the GFX camera is still, in my opinion, the most dominant and most powerful camera, digital camera on the market. The quality that comes out of the 102 megapixel large format sensor is just untouched. There's something special about it. It feels cinematic and filmic. It feels like there is character in every single file that I can't get out of anything. That being said, the closest second I have ever seen over the last 10 years of shooting and last 3 years of being a primarily GFX camera shooter is that Xh2. It's just remarkable. So if you're on the fence with what to go buy, here's what I'll tell you. If you are a Fujifilm shooter currently, go grab an Xh2s or an Xh2 as quickly as you possibly can. I have a feeling there aren't going to be very many on the shelf for very long. There are so many of these videos coming out right now. You guys, it's the camera to get right now. It is absolutely the camera to get, and I can promise you guys that Fujifilm has big plans on how to maximize that new platform and utilize the Xh2 for years and years and years to come. Now, if you're interested or hungry for opening up just the whole large world of digital photography and you want to go beyond what full frame is capable of, the GFX system is absolutely for you. And I will tell you, there's absolutely nothing to regret about jumping into a system like that. Just know what you're getting and assume that it's going to be a little slower than maybe working with some of the APSC or even full frame systems that are out there. All right, you guys, thank you so much for spending the time with me today, investing this time with me. Of course, you guys can find out more and listen to more on my podcast, The Photographic Collective with Miles with Boyer. Meet us over in the Photographic Collective Facebook group at any given moment. There's so much going on in there. Hundreds of photographers from 6 continents getting together just to pour intentional and positive community into each other. And you can find me anytime at Miles with Boyer on Instagram or miles@mileswithboyer.com. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.